Hello and welcome to KPMG in India's Startup Speakeasy. Honest conversations with founders of India's emerging giants. My name is Karan Marwa and I'm here today with Mandeep Manocha, the founder of Cashify, one of India's largest re-commerce platforms. I'm here to talk to him about his journey. And Mandeep, I have to thank you for doing this. What I'd like to do today is really dimension this in the past, the present, and the future. And maybe if we start right at the beginning of, how did you come and how did you come about to think about this idea of setting up Cashify? I know you went through various pivots in the past, but how did you land on this idea of focusing on mobile phones to begin with? And of course, now you expanded to other categories. Just maybe let's start with talking a bit about that.
Sure, Karan. Thanks for doing this. I think you are asking me to go back 15 years. It's a long time. But see, the Cashify, the way it exists today, when we started, the idea was very different. Back in 2009, when I graduated, the best time to, come out of a business school in India, there was no jobs. I actually interned at Lehman Brothers, hoping that I'll become an investment banker.
Oh, wow.
And we all know what happened in 2008. But I always had this thing in me that I want to start something of my own. And I think if I go back 20 years in undergrad school also, we used to, joke that, someday we'll start a company. And we used to make massive plans like, 100, 200, 400 crores without knowing where the money's going to come out.
Yeah, I think I've read about that.
Yeah. So, and the great thing is that my co-founder Nakul and I were in the same hostel. So we have those memories from 20 years ago, which somehow we feel, green shoots of them actually getting developed now, and we are building something which is meaningful. But back in the day, the idea was very simple. We wanted to do something in waste management. And we did a lot of work in different waste streams. And we zeroed in on electronic waste back in 2009 because a lot of conversations were starting to happen in India and across the world. And we felt that, this is a space which is going to grow. Just the fact that everybody was buying new devices, people were changing their devices faster. So there had to be a large, pool of electronic devices sitting at people's homes.
Right.
And today, after 15 odd years, that number is growing. And today, at some estimates says that India has some 80 or 90 million tons of e-waste lying in people's homes. So that is where we started. And we had set up a consulting company initially.
Yeah, I'm aware.
We thought that we can make something really large in waste management consulting. Very naive, two young kids out of school. But we were lucky that we got our first break from a big brand, which was a smartphone manufacturing brand. And the funny story is that when we went to them, they felt that we are a large company already. They did not know that we are just two people trying to build something from scratch. And they came out and they gave us a contract. The contract value was handsome. And we said, wow, we got our first contract. When we had sent in our credentials, the HR team of that company realized that these are two young kids. So they actually slashed the contract value by, 50-60%.
Oh, wow.
Saying that, okay, we didn't realize that, you're just graduate students. I said, okay, whatever comes our way, we'll take it. We did that for about 1.5 years. We set up the first formal e-waste reverse logistics supply chain of the country.
Yeah.
Okay, so we worked with brands and we came out with, programs where we could collect waste from consumers. Consumers could actually walk into stores. We had set up the whole reverse supply chain right to the point where the material went outside of India to a authorized e-waste recycling company.
So was this a little ahead of its time, possibly?
You can say that. It was ahead of its time. But, in the hindsight, I feel that if we had not started it back then,
it won't have given you this foundation.
It won't have, given us this foundation that we have. But we soon realized that business is not going to grow. The biggest learning was that people don't want to part away with their used products for free.
Yeah, in fact, that's going to be one of my follow-up questions. We are a nation of, recyclers in its truest sense. We save those polythene bags that we get from vegetable vendors, to take out boxes for food delivery. And then you kind of change the habit, right, in terms of getting people to part with their prized possessions, your mobile phones, even if they don't work, they keep lying in a drawer somewhere, and then you keep building that mountain of old devices at home. So I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah, so, when we started Cashify, this was the biggest learning that we had from our consulting stint. So just to give you a background, when we started the consumer outreach program, we said that we will plant a tree for every used phone that comes in. Or, if we collect 2 chargers, we will plant a tree. It did not resonate with people. So everybody was like, okay, can you give us some money in return of the phone or some voucher? So the learning stayed with us. And when we thought about building Cashify in terms of, buying used devices from people, we said we have to do 2 things. One, we have to make sure that the process is so easy that you can sit in your home, get the value and sell your phone. 2, there has to be a monetary value around it.
The gratification has
the
to be
gratification and has to be instant. So in 2013-14, there were a few companies in the US which were running on a model wherein you ship the old device and then you'll get money after 7 days. And we said, this is not going to work in India, right? As you rightly said, we sell our newspaper, old newspaper, everything, we don't just part away with things. So we said, we'll make the process so simple online and we will come to your doorstep, pick up the, phone or a laptop and we'll give you money instantly.
And this was 2013?
2013-14.
Right.
Okay. And you won't believe we were the first company in the world to do this. Nowhere in the world existed a process where you would be paid instantly. And now you think of it, it's a norm, right? You buy anything from Flipkart, Amazon, exchange happens, it's instant gratification. All that has been built on the building blocks that we at Cashify has built.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, especially given, how, and I know demonetization was one of the defining moments in your journey with Cashify. Because again, going back to the point, right, the instant gratification, doing this in an economy that's accustomed to cash, and then making that shift from that to digital, means of payment. How did that pan out?
So honestly, when the news came in, for a moment I was very happy as a citizen of the country, that okay, now there'll be something on black money will be curbed out. And when it struck me the next day that how will we run our business operation is when I understood the gravity of the situation. Because before that, every payout used to be hard cash currency. Okay.
And that has to be a logistical nightmare too, right?
It was.
In some ways, possibly demonetization solved that for you?
I think if I, in the hindsight, if I think about it, it has been the best thing that has happened to our company. Like by far the best. I'll tell you the nightmare it was to dole out cash. Every time a customer would place an order to sell a phone, my logistic guy on his route map had an ATM mapped. So he would first go to an ATM, withdraw cash, and these ATM cards that we had given us also were loaded to an extent which was equal to the amount of money that you pay to the customer. Right? So the guy would go to an ATM, withdraw $7,000, $8,000. Now, when you reach the doorstep, it is possible that the phone is not in the same condition that the customer had mentioned.
Yeah.
Now that 8,000 rupees becomes 6,000. Now this guy has 2,000 rupees in his pocket. Now when the next transaction happens, all that has to be recalculated. And at the end of the day, we would always be short of some money. It was a nightmare to do the reconciliations.
So in some ways, it was a blessing then.
It was the greatest thing that happened to us. Of course, for a short period of time, the business took hit. Because on the downstream, the phones that we collect, we test them, we grade them, we repair them, and then we sell back to end consumers. Now, what demonetization did was the money was sucked out. So people did not have money to buy stuff which they would essentially do with the extra cash they generate. Right? So on the selling side of the business, we had a lot of trouble for 5 to 6 months. But thankfully, things have panned out. We are here. Company's grown pretty large. So all in all, a good thing to happen to us.
No, it's been quite a journey. And I'm going to slightly shift tracks to your passion for chemistry. I think that's one of the driving forces behind where you are today, I imagine. And I read something about a rubber to the converting old tires to oil. That was fascinating for me. How do you even do that? And how did you go from there to, again, I think zoning in on mobile phones as a category?
Yeah. So look, Karan, that also stemmed from the fact that we were really passionate about waste management. And, after we did our consulting stint, we realized that you can't make a lot of money in consulting. Just a small outfit like ours, of course not. That's your bread and butter, and you guys have a large enterprise around it. But we said, in this space, which is very niche, let's do something where we actually, get into a manufacturing process or build something which is innovative. At that time, 2009 and 10, the oil prices were actually, $120, $130 per barrel. It was the peak that we've ever seen, and that lasted for 2 years. And there, I had read about a process where you can convert scrap rubber and plastic back into oil. If you look at chemistry, right, and I love the fact that carbon and hydrogen are, the most beautiful elements on this planet, because everything you look around...
I haven't ever heard anyone say that, Mandeep.
So, apart from oxygen, which you need to live, everything you look around in this room and anywhere is carbon.
You're right, yeah.
And wherever there's carbon, hydrogen has to be there. Now, if you look at rubber, what is rubber matrix?
I'm getting an instant chemistry lesson here.
Now, so rubber matrix is nothing but, complex hydrocarbon chains interlinked together. See, ultimately, other than the natural rubber which comes from the sap of the tree, all the rubber that we make in India or across the world, majority of it comes from synthetic rubber, which is a byproduct of crude. Okay? So now, the way it happens is, the crude is essentially what gets converted into rubber. But if you do a reverse pyrolysis method,
so you're basically bringing it back
you
to the
bring
form it
the, rubber back to its original form of, lower chain hydrocarbons. So we figured some tech around it, and we went to China back in 2009 to figure out the technology around it. And there was, industry which was in an initial phase in China. And we figured out a few, equipment manufacturers. We got the machine accustomed to Indian conditions. We brought them, and we were the first or second company in India to actually get into the business of pyrolysis to convert scrap tires into oil. And the way we built it was, if you have ever gotten the tires of your car changed, which you would have, you've never given heed to what happens to the old tires, right? They just take it back. They don't give you any money for it. You just pay for the new tires and you move on with your car. Now, what happens is, all those 4 or 5 tires that you leave there, there's a network of small rickshaw pullers or small collectors who collect these tires from all these shops, take them to a big aggregator. At the big aggregator, these tires are then cut into smaller chunks. Okay? Now, can you guess where these chunks of small tires go?
So I know one use case. I know people used to convert it back to rubber in some ways, mixing it up. I don't know the chemistry again, but
yeah. So
what's your answer?
Majority of old tires, and this is back in the day, go to manufacture bricks. Okay. Now, where in bricks, they were used as fuel, which is the most dirty way of polluting this environment. So if you go to the UP belt from here towards Saharanpur and cross the Meerut, Ghaziabad,
black smoke,
you would see these brick kilns on the side. The starting raw material for the fire that generates is rubber.
So you took that and said, I'm going to clean it up. And
so what we did was, we went to all these the collectors, and we said, we will give you 10% more or 20% more, and we want all the supply. So we actually built one of the first reverse supply chains for old tires in the country.
I just love the fact you've done so many things for the first time, and I'll come back to that. But why do you continue?
No, so that's what we did, and we were doing about 10 tons of scrap tires a day. We ramped it up to 20 tons, but then we soon realized that this is a linearly scaling business.
Yeah, can't be exponential.
So we did that for 2 years. We set up everything. Had great learnings of setting up a manufacturing facility in India. And, whoever is wanting to do that as a young entrepreneur today, let me tell you, it was very, very hard. Getting approvals, getting the basic thing like an electricity connection took us 3 months. And we actually ran our plant on a diesel generator for 3 months.
Wow.
Right? But that teaches you a lot, how to navigate the, bureaucratic systems, how to hire the right people for setting up the initial phases of a company. Taught us a lot. But after 2 years, we took a call that, okay, we've learned whatever we have to learn. Can we exit this business and do something more in internet related stuff? Because that's the time when the likes of Snapdeal and Flipkart had started, and Ola was just around the corner. Uber was really successful in the US. So we said, the kind of people that we are interacting in this business, of course it's great business, we are making money, but we want to do something different in internet and the related space.
Yeah.
So we actually sold that business and we made decent amount of money, and we traveled the world for 2-3 months. And that's when, we took a call end of 2013 that we want to go back to e-waste. And from there, the re-commerce and the journey for Cashify started.
It's fantastic. I think in some ways, ESG has been at the core of what you've done throughout your career, it seems, with all the businesses that you've set up. And one hears a lot about ESG today. I think it's spoken of in virtually every business conversation. But you've kind of lived it. And has that always been a North Star for you consciously, or did you just happen to sort of come into this?
So I would say, it was there unconsciously, to be honest, because while growing up, I had a lot of exposure to metal recycling industry because my father worked in a metal recycling company. So I remember spending almost all my summer holidays in junkyards. And one skill that I boast of is, if you give me 5 metals, I can tell you what metal it is. Like 5 pieces of different metals, I can tell you this is copper, this is aluminium, just by weight and look and feel of it. That's a meta skill that I've learned during my childhood. Now, somewhere I always felt that India can become the recycling hub of the world.
Yeah, I think the government has ambitions for that too.
Right. The government is now talking about it. And this is something that I've, thought out in 2009, that why don't we have a special economic zone on the ports where you import recyclable stuff from across the world.
And that is now becoming
then
a reality hopefully soon.
Hopefully. The government is talking about it. And I think it makes complete sense. I mean, I know for a fact that back in 2009, I was reading an article that one of the richest lady in China made her fortunes by importing scrap cardboards from the US and Japan, converting or recycling them into paper and re-exporting them. So, I mean, China has been the manufacturing backend of the world. India has been the IT or support backend of the world. Why can't we become the recycling backend of the world? We can.
Yeah. So, what made you gravitate towards ESG then? Was it the initial orientation from the family business and looking at what the family did? Was it a personal sort of interest in doing better for the planet? What really motivated you?
I think it's a combination of all. Of course, I have always been of a view that, you have to make a positive contribution to the society. Of course, everybody says it. It's there as a gyan. Everybody will, tell you that you have to make a positive contribution. But I also believe that the positive contribution, if clubbed with economic benefit, is the only way that you can scale your
it has
intent.
To make business sense.
It has to make business sense.
If it's just done for the sake of doing it.
Correct. So ESG for the longest time was, in the bucket of CSR for a lot of companies initially. Okay. And that doesn't work. And in our personal example also, the moment we ascribed a value to a used device, people started selling it to us. But when we were saying that we'll plant a tree, people were like, I want to do it. It sounds good, but I don't want the hassle. It's not real enough. Yeah. So, I had this thing that I want to build something, but if it, makes this positive impact, why not? And given that I had this orientation towards, recycling from the metal recycling industry, just one thing led to the other, actually.
It's fascinating. And I think you achieved a lot in the last, I would say, 15 years or so, and more so since you set up Cashify and pivoted to Cashify. what are some of the personal attributes that have kept you going? I can see the passion here. I know about the chemistry skills now, but what would you call out as, the personal attributes that have kept you going?
Okay, let me think.
Any role models that you kind of looked up to and emulated?
I feel that, role models change a lot as you age. When you're a child, you want to emulate Sachin Tendulkar. Today, for today's generation, could be Kohli. When you grow up a little bit, you want to become an actor, or you look up to a musician. So all these things change. So I don't know. Well, I had a role model specifically, in the business domain. There have been many. I've looked up to Baba Kalyani of Bharat Forge. Not many people know, but the kind of solid company he's built over the last 20 years is phenomenal, right? An Indian company getting into the domain of metal forging and now doing great things in defense. It's not talked about much. But then there are the usuals, the Elon Musks of the world, which we've all seen now, and everybody, wants to emulate for right reasons, of course. But there hasn't been any specific guy that I can say, okay, this is the person that I've emulated. But I'm a big fan of the Indian business community who have built or who have been the original entrepreneurs of the country.
Oh yeah, we are a land of entrepreneurs.
And there are so many of them. I think people like us are celebrated or talked about. Whenever we raise any capital, there's newspaper articles. It does not fascinate me because I know that we are way too small than the people who've actually built businesses over the last 100 years in the country. And I get my inspiration because my father, when he worked in the metal recycling industry, I had a lot of interactions with the Marwadi community and the Baniya community. And my father used to take me to meetings where, I saw negotiations right there.
Yeah.
It was fascinating the way people think. And, one fun fact is when I reached my business school, a lot of content in the business schools that I was taught were something that I already knew. Because I had sat through the negotiations in the office. I knew what Incoterms were. I knew what the FOB and, all those things are, which people generally don't know. So I think that initial exposure to businesses, that has helped me a lot. Right? And sorry, I digress from the topic of...
I'm getting modesty as one of them too, so I've added to the list.
No, because, you learn a lot from different people. So that is what I've done. And they need not be, some big name or something. I've learned a lot from different people. So that has helped me.
Pick on something you said as a segue to my next question, actually. I think this whole question of are you chasing valuations or are you creating real businesses and are you creating real value? So creating value versus chasing valuations. And I know from an earlier conversation with you that you are not someone who chases valuations.
See, valuation...
Let's chat about that. How do you resist it?
See, valuation is an outcome, right? And if you do the right thing, people will value you. And I think the real test is how are you valued in the public market, right? In the private markets, you could be $1 billion or $10 billion. We have seen enough cases in the last 2-3 years where companies valued at $20 billion are now worth zero, right? So the real test is, can a middle class man who wants to invest 10,000 rupees per month or 5,000 rupees per month actually aspires to buy a stock in your company, and does your stock go up? That is the real outcome. That's the valuation that ultimately I would be chasing. Apart from that, you just, if you're building a great business, does not matter what your valuations are in the short term.
Yeah, I think focusing on the basics and the essentials, right? Creating real value, I think.
The businesses are built for creating profits, right? And I always used to get amused when I used to meet people and they said, oh, we are not thinking of profits right now. Okay, first year you're not thinking about profit.
Yeah, the top line versus the bottom line.
But if in the year 3 or year 4 you're not thinking of profit, then I don't think you have any right to exist in business domain, right? Because you are building businesses on other people's money. Essentially, for the large segment of entrepreneurs that we have in the country, it's not your skin in the game. I mean, your money, of course, you're putting your time and effort to build it, but you can't say that, we are not thinking of profit. It's been 4 years, because ultimately somebody has to make money on the money that has been invested in you, right? So fundamentals are important. Don't be frivolous in terms of spending too much money on marketing and doing what, sounds or looks nice to you. It has to make business sense at the end of the day, and the companies are valued on the profits that you earn. Gone are the days when the revenue multiples were what were giving you valuations. Today, if you talk to any VC or private equity guy, revenues have no meaning.
Black is back in fashion.
It is. So, I mean, these are all cycles, but, essentially, if you are a good company, then you will make a lot of money in the long run, and the valuations will go up. That's what we believe.
I think focusing on the fundamentals, as you said, let's switch tracks to talking about, how Cashify has grown and, is run right now. And I know you have 3 other co-founders. How is it to work with other co-founders? What's been your experience?
Well, I think having a co-founder is very,
I know
very...
some of the hostel stories that
earlier. One thing is...
Did that help being, at the same place at the same time since so long? Did that help?
No, that definitely helps. In terms of, the person, way more than what your business relationship is. But I think the way we've built Cashify is we've worked with friends and families, to be honest. Okay. So the initial 10-15 people were either batchmates or juniors from college or senior from college, or husbands or wives of, juniors and
Extended
seniors from college, extended family in a way. And what that did was, kind of made the whole process really fun, right? We used to look forward to coming to office because this was an extension of the life. And this was an extension of the life that we've lived in the past, right? If you recall your hostel life, you were like 6, 7 sitting in a room, just chatting and having fun all the time. Just imagine extending that to your work life. So that is what Cashify was for us initially. And over the years, of course, we've now grown to about 2,300 people across the country.
Yeah, that's a staggering number.
Yeah, but the initial 7-8 people are still there in the company.
That's durable.
Right. So we've been together for 10 years. We've really enjoyed the process of building it. And in a way, we've built a culture which is a fun place to be. Now, and there's another fact that this is such a great environment that majority of people who come here and join the company get married in 1 or 2 years, because they realize that, okay, life is sorted, life is good.
So not only do you find a job, you also find them life partners.
Yeah. In a way, I mean, that's a fun part that, we've discovered in the company. But yeah, having co-founders have helped. Having, known Nakul for 20 years or more than 20.
Are you able to lean on each other?
You do. Look, in the journey of starting and building a company, there are moments when you think of giving up.
Yeah.
And that has happened multiple times in our lives, right? But having 1 or 2 people who can, push you, because there will never be a time where all 3 of you want to just give up. Right? It's very hard.
Well, that's a good hedge to
That's good hedge, right? So somebody will keep, pushing you and say, okay, no, work for a few more months and things will come back. So that has helped. And, in due course, we've also, built strong relations with the families of each other. So today, it's not just 3-4 of us, but it's like 15-16 of us who share this common bond. So life is good on that terms, and it's been really helpful having these people around.
Oh, that's great. That's excellent. Mandeep, continuing on the theme of people, I know you employ a staggering number of people, 2,200 now. But how easy is it to find the right talent? And I know a large part of that workforce, works on repairing those devices and getting them ready to be sold again. Is it a challenge to find the right people and then retain them, especially with the skill sets you need?
Yeah, I know. I mean, getting people who have the skills of repairing has been tough. But we, over the years, we've moved our repair operations to Noida. So large part of India's smartphone manufacturing and IT manufacturing happens there. So that was a natural move, and we started getting some people. But, as we scaled up, we built our own training academy. So we have about 70 or 80 seater training academy where, every 6 months or every quarter we get a new batch. We teach them the basics of repairing a phone, then get them on as apprentice on the floor. So it's like a 4 to 5 months program where we train them and then, absorb them. And I think there's a shortage of people who can, do quality repairs and refurbishing in India. And I think one of the things that we were discussing only a few weeks back is why don't we partner with Skill India and build this as a, capability in the country? Because
vocational skill that...
correct. If India has to become the recycling or repair hub for the world, you need this. So I think, we want to scale this up quite a bit. And we are also now thinking of expanding the capacity of our training center and making it about 200, 250 people so that we can train about 500, 600 people every year.
That's a sizable number.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it helps you with
it
the
helps.
business.
It helps us, and this is a real skill which is going to have a positive impact on the country's economy, and the government is talking about it a lot. I mean, if you've heard the Prime Minister, he's talked about Mission Life quite a bit in the last 1 or 2 years, which essentially means extending the life of the product and making India the repair hub of the world. So, we are investing behind it now.
Yeah. Maybe switching to a different dimension of people, your customers.
Yeah.
And I know we were having a light conversation on some of your Instagram videos, but any interesting customer stories, consumer stories that come to mind? Because again, I think at least if I think about it, you enabled a large part of the population to get access to devices that they previously could not, at price points that they could not possibly have gotten to.
No, many stories, Karan, and I have great stories on both sides when we buy used devices from people, and at the same time we sell these devices to individuals. Now, on the buying side, I mean, I'm surprised and amused that people think that they can't sell their old device because people think that's very difficult. And the fact that we all have unlimited space in our house.
Yeah, I think it's just the inertia. I think even I've got like 4 or 5 devices sitting somewhere.
Correct. Now, if you compare it with a car buying behavior, what is scarce commodity in, say, the cities that we live? The parking space. Right? So the moment you buy a new car, you have to sell your old. But when you buy a new phone, you have 20 drawers in your house waiting where you can just dump it in and forget about it. And the fact that people think that we will use this phone at some point in time as a spare phone never happens.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, it goes back to again changing the habit that we were chatting about earlier.
Correct. And people also think that, I have very important data in the phone. Now, I'll ask you, Karan, the pictures that you clicked 4 years ago, how many times have you seen them?
Quite often, actually, for me.
Yeah? Surprising, but many people...
Photography is a passion for me, but I know what you...
But many people, they just click pictures, keep it in their hard disk and never look at them.
Never look at them.
And nobody's, concerned at looking at your pictures honestly, right? But yes, there is a element of data security, which people worry about. Now, that is where we come in and we take care of it. Like when we buy a product, we make sure that the data is wiped at the doorstep. When it comes to our backend warehouse, we do military-grade data wipe on the phones and laptops that we bring in.
Yeah, I think that's an important element because
very important element.
Consumer the comfort that it's not going to the wrong hands.
Correct. So, there are many instances where we've spoken to consumers and they're like, "Kya 4,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees ke liye kyun phone bechna hai?" And my simple answer to them is 5,000 rupees, of course, is not going to move the needle for you, but it is still money lying in your drawers, and 2 years down the line, it will become zero. And the second important thing is that it's valuable resource of the planet. Like every phone that is lying inside the drawer is actually valuable metals. Like it has plastic, it has glass, it has, cobalt, nickel, cadmium,
I was
gold,
reading the
everything.
Stats on your website, the amount of water that you save per phone.
Correct.
What is it? Daily?
Some 342 liters per phone. And there, millions of gallons of water could be saved if all those devices come out.
Yeah, for nothing else.
Right? So that's one part. On the selling side, when we sell refurbished phones, I'll tell you beautiful stories. Like, during COVID, we started a drive called Donate for Education. and where we prompted people to donate their phones, which we would repair, refurbish, and give to people who could not afford for education purpose, kids across the country. And we also did every phone that came in, we added phone from our side and we donated. The stories that came in, people actually, wrote to me. They called me up and said, "Sir, you've changed our lives," because we don't realize that for a large number of kids in the country, the access to smartphones happen when the father comes home from his days of work, right? So I got a story where the father was an auto rickshaw driver. He had connected his phone on Ola. He would come back home at 9 after finishing his day. That's when the girl got access to the smartphone, and she would study all night, and morning the phone would go back to her
things
father.
we take for granted.
Things we take for granted. And she said, "You've changed my life. Now I have access to phone the whole day." These are simple things, but we don't realize. The other thing that I've noticed is the amount of joy we bring into people's lives when they buy a smartphone. And especially, the love for iPhones and the latest Galaxy series is phenomenal. And if you think about it, a large number of population in the country, they don't have avenues where they can feel important or they can show off, right? So when I speak to these customers in the stores, it's really amusing and fascinating that, most of them, they want to buy the latest iPhone or the latest Samsung product, but they can't afford it. So I was there in the Chennai store a few weeks back, and a customer walks in and says, "I want to buy an iPhone 13. And, by the looks of it, I could tell that, I don't think he has the money for buying iPhone 13 in full. But I inquired without being presumptuous that, why do you want an iPhone 13 and how are you going to pay for it? And where do you work? So he's like, I've been working for 6 months in a call center. My salary is about 25,000. I've saved up about 15,000 rupees.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I'm going to give
a shiny new toy.
For a shiny new toy. And it's the first thing that he's going to buy out of his savings. I'm going to, put in a 15,000 rupee. And for the rest of it, I'm going to do an EMI. But I want the iPhone 13. I like, why don't you buy, say, a 15,000 rupee phone or a 12,000? His answer was pretty simple, that all my friends have started buying iPhones. So now I want to own an iPhone and it gives me immense joy. That was it. And that's where I realized that, we think about making a positive change in terms of the phone being an employment opportunity for people, or people can study. But we underlook in the fact that it also gives them immense joy.
There's that segment of population.
Right? So, that is also really important. And I have many such stories where someone traveled from Sri Perumbudur on a scooty to a Chennai store, like 2 hours of riding on a scooty to our store to buy a phone. Why? Because in his factory, the guy who used to work right next to him bought a phone from Cashify, an iPhone 12, and he really loved it. And he trekked all the way to our store. So there's so many such stories where, it feels good that somewhere you are, making people happy. Yeah.
It's better than a lot of other things. So, since you were talking about stores and, maybe we should guess to the future now. Where does Cashify go from here? I know you about 200 plus stores now. Yeah. You've expanded into other categories.
Yeah.
What's the future direction that you want to take this in?
So we are known as a destination for people to sell their phones, and we continue to, harp on it. We want more and more people to bring out their old phones. And, as I said, about 80% of the electronic waste is lying in people's house. And I don't consider it waste till it comes out. So one of the major things that we want to undertake and continue doing is bring out those phones, make it easy for people to sell them, get money, get the resources to come out and get circulated in the economy. But at the same time, we are now focusing a lot on selling these refurbished phones, so building a brand around it, wherein, anybody can buy a refurbished phone at, 50% or 60% of price point of a new one. Comes with a 6-month warranty or a 12-month warranty. So that's where we are doubling down. And in terms of categories also, we are now going very heavy in laptops. So we've done a lot of work in smartphones. But now we want to build a great brand around laptops as well, because that's a category which has a lot of supply in corporates. Every year, every 3 years, a lot of companies, they sell their old or discard their old laptops. We can repair, refurbish them, and make them available to people in tier 2, tier 3 towns at much cheaper cost. At the same time, we are also now focusing on getting into a few other businesses, wherein one of the lines that we are exploring is insurance and extended warranties of products, because that's a segment which is related to the work that we do. Then we are also building business around accessories. So today we sell a lot of earphones, headphones, chargers, etc. When people come to buy them from us, we are thinking of building a brand in that space as well. So there's a lot to do. I mean, we are just scratching the surface of e-commerce right now, and I think it's as a lot of people say that it's still day one. It's still day one for us. I can clearly see a decade worth of business or a vision for us right now.
That's fantastic, Mandeep. And I think I would like to end this by asking you one final question. You started up at a time where, we spoke about it, a recession was full-blown. There was a full-blown recession. Versus fast forward now, where a lot of people say, there couldn't be a better time to start up in India, at least, compared to other parts of the world. In hindsight, would you have done anything differently? Would it have been better to start up now vis-a-vis when you did?
So I agree that starting up is easy. I mean, getting access to capital is easy. Personally, I feel that I would not have been able to start now because I have a wife and a kid to feed. Back in the day, 15 years ago, I had no liabilities. So I think as you age and more liabilities come on your responsibilities, come on your shoulders, it gets difficult. But having said that, it's a great environment right now to start a company, but that has been there forever.
Which is what you've proven by doing what you've done.
It is not a function of what the external factors that govern. It's how passionate you are on what you're trying to build. Are you actually trying to solve a problem? Now, I'm a big believer that you need, your business has to revolve around solving a problem. We saw a problem that there is not enough avenues where you could buy a good quality refurbished product. We saw a problem that it was difficult to sell your old device sitting at home. It was hassle to go to a market. And 2012, 2013, when e-commerce had started, my simple question was that if I can buy a new smartphone online, why can't I sell my old one? Right? It's a very simple problem statement. So we went after a problem and solved it. So whoever whatever business you want to start, if it's around a problem, time se koi farak nahi padta hai.
No, I think one hears that often enough, and enough examples now of, if you are solving a real problem, there is a business to be made.
There is a business.
And in your case, a very sensible ESG-centric business at that. I think, again, I know I said I was going to ask you one final question.
Sure.
Here's another one. What is your advice to people starting up now? Reflecting on your career and the number of years you spent creating Cashify.
See, I think I've seen a lot of people will say that, just start, don't think about it, just do it and all that. I think it's very different for everybody. Every life situation is different, every circumstance is different. So if you want to start, think of all the responsibilities that you have. Do you have enough money to survive 2 years without any money coming in? It's very, very important. You don't realize that 6 months or 8 months into starting something, when, you start getting pinched financially, it's very easy. It's very easy to, give up. So you need to have that war chest ready. And my advice is at least 2 years worth of money should be there in your bank account for you to start and solve a problem. As I said, don't ride a wave, because I've seen many founders ride a wave. We saw that in 2015-16 with food delivery companies. We saw this in medicine delivery companies in 2018-19. We are seeing some patterns right now. when you ride a wave, there will be people who will be willing to invest, because if you look at the venture capital industry, everybody wants a horse on the racetrack, but only one horse will win. And the moment your business starts going down, the funding dries up. So if you're solving a genuine problem with focus on fundamentals, you can win anytime, right? So just be mindful of these two things. Your circumstances, having enough money, and solving a problem. I think you can do whatever you want to do.
And I would add a third, having the fortitude like you have over a number of years to keep going in spite of, or maybe because of the pivots that you made. Mandeep, thank you very much for your time and for doing this with us. I wish you all the best.
Thank you,
I wish Cashify all the best, not just on my own accord, but also on behalf of KPMG.
Thank you.
And
thank you so much.
Wish you continued success.
Thank you, Karan. Thanks for
you so
inviting
much.
me.